Well, that breaking news right now at 10 o'clock out of Western North Carolina. A 16-year-old girl arrested for the alleged murders of both of her parents and her grandmother. An adult man has also been charged in their deaths. Authorities tracked down both of them today in Tennessee. Deputies say those killings happened yesterday at a home in Fairview, North Carolina. We have it mapped out right here for you on your screen. That's also where we find Fox Carolina's Alexa Urbach with the latest on the investigation.
Crime scene tape still hanging here on this fence, just one day after deputies with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office say they found 3 adults dead with gunshot wounds here in this trailer. Now, one of the suspects accused in their deaths, the victim's daughter and granddaughter. All 4 of them beloved by the community, leaving neighbors shocked. Deputies say they believe the victims had been dead for several days. Deputies say they were first called to the home Monday after a family member requested a welfare check, but no one answered the door. They returned Wednesday for another welfare check, then again Thursday evening when they were finally able to get inside. After finding the 3 victims, deputies realized a 16-year-old Star Grant who lived in the home with her parents was missing. Deputies say they tracked her to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, where she was found Friday morning with 28-year-old Devon Loving. The nature of their relationship is unknown at this time.
3 welfare checks. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. 3 separate times, Buncombe County Sheriff's deputies drove to 18 Ashworth Drive in Fairview, North Carolina. 3 times they knocked. 3 times they looked around. 3 times they left. Because 3 times, they said they did not have enough evidence to legally force entry. On the 3rd visit, Thursday evening, May 7, 2026, at approximately 7:15 p.m., they finally went inside. And they found 3 people, dead, with gunshot wounds. They had been dead for days. And the 16-year-old girl who lived in that house was already gone. Tonight on Midnight Case Files, we are going to Fairview, North Carolina. This is the story of Travis Grant, Kimberly Grant, and Sharon Harwood Grant, 3 family members, killed inside their own home, while deputies knocked twice and walked away. Before we talk about the investigation, before we talk about the welfare checks, before we talk about the 2 people charged with killing them, you need to know who was taken inside that house in Fairview. Travis Eugene Grant was 41 years old. A childhood friend of Travis, speaking to WLOS, described him as laid back and generous. He said he could not believe the news when he heard it. The kind of man people don't expect bad things to happen to. Kimberly Michelle Grant was 42 years old, Travis's wife. Together, they had built a life in the Fairview community, a small, tight-knit area just southeast of Asheville in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And Sharon Harwood Grant was 66 years old, Travis's mother. 3 generations, under one roof. And then there was Star Grant, 16 years old, the daughter of Travis and Kimberly. Court records, confirmed by WLOS and Fox Carolina, show that Travis Grant legally adopted Star in 2019, when she was just 9 years old. He chose her. He made her his daughter officially, legally, formally. He signed the papers that said, "You are mine. I will take care of you." The same man those court records show legally adopted Star Grant in 2019 is now listed as one of her alleged victims. Travis, Kimberly, Sharon, a father, a mother, a grandmother, gone inside the home that was supposed to be their safe place. 3 family members, an adoption, 3 welfare checks, and nobody forced that door open. Subscribe to Midnight Case Files right now. This case has an extradition hearing Monday, and I will be covering every single update. Drop a comment. What detail in this case has stopped you in your tracks? Tell me below. Now let's talk about the 3 welfare checks, because this is the detail that has the entire country asking questions. The welfare checks were requested by a relative, someone in the family who hadn't been able to reach Travis, Kimberly, and Sharon. Monday, May 4th, deputies drove to 18 Ashworth Drive. They knocked. They looked around. They found no sufficient evidence of an emergency to legally force entry. They left. Wednesday, May 6th, deputies drove to 18 Ashworth Drive again. Same result. Not enough to force entry. They left. Thursday, May 7th. They came back a third time. This time, they had enough. They entered. At 7:15 p.m. They found Travis. They found Kimberly. They found Sharon. All dead from gunshot wounds. Captain Dustin Aldridge, speaking at the Friday press conference covered by WLOS and Fox Carolina, explained why deputies couldn't go in sooner.
We had previously 2 welfare checks this week, one on Monday and one, I believe, on the 6th. The deputies responded out there, went to the residents. Through their time there and investigation, they did not develop enough information to force entry into the residence. We have to be able to articulate an exigency there, and the information at that time just did not exist.
Articulate exigency. Legal language. 4. We couldn't prove there was an emergency urgent enough to break down the door. And the question the community is now asking, the question every person watching this is asking, is this. There was a relative worried enough to call for not 1, not 2, but 3 welfare checks. 3 times in a single week. And the people inside that house had been dead for several days before officers found them. Major John Ledford, also speaking at Friday's press conference, addressed the charges directly. They're charged with a Class A felony that has potential in the state of North Carolina, either the death penalty or life imprisonment. But those words came too late for Travis, Kimberly, and Sharon. They were already gone. Now let's talk about Devon O'Neil Loving, 28 years old, a Buncombe County resident. Here is what we know, and more importantly, here is what we don't know yet. Devon Loving is 28 years old. Star Grant is 16 years old. That is a 12-year age gap. As Fox Carolina confirmed, the exact nature of the relationship between Loving and Grant has not been publicly disclosed. That detail, the relationship between a 16-year-old girl and a 28-year-old man, is something investigators and prosecutors will be examining extremely closely. What we know from Buncombe County authorities. Both Loving and Grant are Buncombe County residents. They were found together at a hotel on Ownby Street in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. They had allegedly been in Tennessee for more than a few days before they were arrested, according to Captain Aldridge. Investigators are still working to determine exactly why the pair traveled to Gatlinburg, a popular tourist destination in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, following the killings. As WLOS confirmed, the interviews conducted by Buncombe County deputies who traveled to Gatlinburg ultimately led to both Loving and Grant being charged with murder. Devon Loving is currently held in the Sevier County Detention Center in Tennessee. He faces extradition back to North Carolina. He faces 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony conspiracy to commit murder. He faces the death penalty or life in prison. Now let's talk about Star Grant, because this part of the case is as complicated as it is heartbreaking. Star Grant is 16 years old. She grew up next door to her neighbor Sailor Tagner, who spoke to Fox Carolina after the arrests were announced.
Her family was great to me. They treated me well. She was an amazing person to me.
Sailor Tagner grew up next door to 16-year-old Star Grant and her parents, 41-year-old Travis Grant and 42-year-old Kimberly Grant.
They treated me like I was their own, and it felt awesome.
She says she met Star Grant in elementary school, and the two quickly became friends.
She would take care of me at school. If someone was bullying me or something, she would stand up for me. It's so weird to expect my neighbor to do all that, and someone I grew up with. I was at their house constantly.
Sailor described Star and the family as neighbors she had known. She couldn't believe the news. None of the neighbors could. Court records, confirmed by WLOS, show that Travis Grant adopted Star in 2019. The man she is now charged with conspiring to murder was her adoptive father. Who chose her? Who signed legal documents to make her his daughter when she was 9 years old? And now, North Carolina prosecutors have made a decision that is both extraordinary and deeply significant. Star Grant, 16 years old, will be charged and prosecuted as an adult. As Major Ledford said at the press conference.
They've already been charged there in Tennessee, so we anticipate probably on Monday there will be some type of extradition hearing. Because she is charged as an adult, she would have to go through extradition, and of course he is an adult, so he'll have to be extradited as well. Depending on the outcome of that hearing, whether they waive probable cause or whether they refuse to waive probable cause, that will determine where we go next.
That means she faces the same potential sentences as Devon Loving: life in prison or the death penalty. A 16-year-old girl facing the death penalty in the state of North Carolina. No motive has been released. The relationship between Grant and Loving has not been disclosed, and investigators are still piecing together exactly what happened inside that house on Ashworth Drive and why. 3 welfare checks, a 12-year age gap, an adoption, a 16-year-old charged as an adult facing the death penalty. Drop a comment right now. Do you think she should be tried as an adult? Yes or no? I want to hear from every single one of you. And share this video. Travis, Kimberly, and Sharon deserve to have their story told. Now let's talk about how they caught them. Because this involved 4 separate law enforcement agencies across 2 states, working through the night. After deputies entered 18 Ashworth Drive on Thursday evening and found the 3 bodies, they immediately realized Star Grant was missing. The Buncombe County Sheriff's Office called in the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. Together they began tracking where Star Grant and Devon Loving had gone. The trail led across state lines, into Tennessee, to Gatlinburg, the tourist town at the base of the Great Smoky Mountains, a city full of hotels, vacation rentals, and visitors who wouldn't notice 2 strangers checking in. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation was alerted. The Gatlinburg Police Department was brought in. And on Friday morning, May 8, 2026, at just before 6 a.m., officers located Star Grant and Devon Loving at a hotel on Ownby Street in Gatlinburg. They were taken into custody, questioned by Buncombe County deputies who had traveled to Tennessee. And those interviews led directly to the murder charges being announced at Friday's press conference. They are currently being held in the Sevier County Detention Center in Tennessee. An extradition hearing is expected Monday, after which they will be transferred back to Buncombe County, North Carolina, to formally face their charges. 2 questions are going to define how this case is understood. Beyond the charges, beyond the trial. The first is the welfare check question. 3 visits. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. A relative was worried enough to call 3 times in a single week. And yet, legally, deputies could not force entry until the 3rd visit. As Captain Aldridge explained, the law requires officers to be able to articulate exigency, to have specific, articulable reasons that an emergency exists. That is not a failure of the deputies. That is the law as it exists. But should that law be re-examined? Should welfare check protocols for family members who haven't been heard from require a lower threshold for entry? That is a question this case will force legislators and law enforcement agencies across the country to answer. The second question is Devon Loving. Who is he to Star Grant? How did a 16-year-old girl come to know a 28-year-old man in Buncombe County, North Carolina? What was the nature of that relationship? And what role, if any, did that relationship play in what allegedly happened inside that house on Ashworth Drive? No answers yet. But those answers are coming. Here is where things stand today. Star Grant, 16, and Devon Loving, 28, are being held in Sevier County, Tennessee. Extradition hearing expected Monday. Once transferred to Buncombe County, both will formally face 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of felony conspiracy to commit murder. Both charges, Class A felonies under North Carolina law, carrying either life in prison or the death penalty. No motive has been publicly released. Autopsies are pending from the medical examiner's office. The investigation remains active and ongoing. Midnight Case Files will be right here every step of the way. When there are answers, we will bring them to you. For now, Travis Eugene Grant, 41 years old, who was described by a childhood friend as laid back and generous, who chose to adopt a little girl in 2019 and made her officially, legally, his daughter. Kimberly Michelle Grant, 42 years old, who built a life in the Blue Ridge Mountains of western North Carolina in a small community where neighbors still know each other's names. Sharon Harwood Grant, 66 years old, a grandmother, a mother, whose only mistake was loving her family enough to share a roof with them. 3 people, found after 3 welfare checks. After days of silence that turned out to mean the very worst thing possible. A childhood friend said he could not believe the news. Neither can we. This has been Midnight Case Files. Share this video. Say their names. Travis, Kimberly, Sharon. Subscribe so you never miss a case. And check on the people around you. Sometimes the silence is the loudest warning of all.